Hey, Chris.
Hey, Kyle. I have the new Silent Wings 3 here. I think you're gonna love them.
Nice. Can't wait to check these out. Thanks.
By the way, my car broke down, and I was wondering if you... Kyle?
What the? Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, stop it. Stop it. No. What's happening?
Hey, be quiet in here.
Oh.
Kyle wasn't prepared to be blown away by the new Silent Wings 3 fans from Be Quiet. Are you? For a cooler, quieter system, click on the link in the description for more info. What's up, guys? So, for the sake of argument, let's assume that lately you've been tossing around the idea of trying your hand at custom water cooling. It seems a part of you can't shake the burning desire to experience those chilly temps, higher overclocks, and glorious acoustics that come with a robust liquid-cooled setup. You've been fantasizing about your dream loop for so long now, there's hardly any room left for Emma Watson's feet. At the same time, you'd be treading in uncharted waters, and you're still unsure if the challenges and time invested are worth the payoff. Not to mention the upfront cost would bleed your bank account dry, and you'll need some disposable income left over in case Antec ever starts making good products again. Truth be told, you've been sitting on the fence for so long, it's starting to look kind of infected. But there may still be hope for you yet, because the products we're testing out today offer a middle ground solution that rival the performance you might expect from a custom loop, without the hassle or extreme cost. From the folks over at EK comes their critically acclaimed Predator AIO, now offered with 280mm rads, and a pre-filled GPU water block to easily expand that loop with quick disconnect technology. In theory, this should provide a seamless water-cooled solution to help you optimize your system to its fullest. So today we'll be outfitting our air-cooled gaming PC here with all the Predator fixes, and measuring any improvements we might see in temps, acoustics, and overclocking. Personally, I'm just glad there's no chance of this happening again. On that note, the test system we'll be using resides in the infamously inverted Corsair 600C, which was actually one of the few chassis I had on hand that could fit the Predator 280 comfortably. Instead of being built into the water block, the pump and wiring is positioned next to the radiator, making it the biggest 280 AIO on the market. If your case claims to support 280mm radiators, you might want to triple check the forums to make sure it can fit this one. Being chilled by Cooler Master's Hyper 212 Evo, we have a Core i5-6600K for our CPU on an Asus Z170 Deluxe with 16 gigs of G-Skill Trident Z at 3200. Our video card is the Gaming X GTX 1080 from MSI, which I recently did a review on, powered by an EVGA 650W GQ and a 1TB Crucial MX 200 SSD for our OS and applications. A trio of Corsair AF140 Quiet Edition fans were also used for dual intakes and a rear exhaust. On this air-cooled system, I was able to take the 6600K to a stable 4.7 GHz at 1.35 volts, which hit a max temp of 78 degrees Celsius after 30 minutes of concurrent stress testing with Ada64 and Unigine Heaven 4.0. It's a bit toastier than most gamers would like to see, but honestly not half bad for the $30 Hyper 212. Of course, chances are you won't be stress testing your CPU in the background while gaming, so with just Heaven 4.0 running, the CPU maxed out at a much cooler 66 degrees Celsius. Maxing out the power and temp targets, our factory overclocked GTX 1060 was pushed even further with a core clock offset of 155 MHz. That took the max core clock frequency to 2.1 GHz, though the chip quickly backed down to a constant 2050. Our memory clock received an offset of 370 MHz, taking it to a clock speed hovering in the 1340s. The GPU hit 78 degrees Celsius, leaving much room for improvement for our Predator setup. As for acoustics, here's what the system sounds like after running Heaven 4.0 for about 15 minutes. As you might have heard, the noise is audible but stays fairly quiet under load and shouldn't prove distracting to even those with sensitive hearing, especially if you're listening to in-game sound. After conducting our air-cooled tests, I went ahead and installed the Predator hardware, which was actually quite easy. I guess that's kind of the point after all. Mounting the GPU block is just like installing any of EK's standard blocks, which involves a bunch of screwing, throwing down some thermal pads and thermal grease, and more screwing. I do think the screws could be a bit higher quality, especially since the 4 screws surrounding the GPU need to be tightened as much as possible, and it felt like I was close to stripping them once or twice, but overall this was a straightforward procedure. The CPU AIO installs much like any other competitor, though the fans come pre-mounted to the radiator and I had to flip them around in order to set them to intake air at the front of our chassis. Once everything's installed, attaching the quick disconnects literally takes 5 seconds and is the easiest thing ever, all without leaking a single drop of fluid. Be warned, however, that you're likely to end up with a lot of excess tubing unless building inside of a massive case, so you may have to restrain the tubes with zip ties or Velcro straps to keep them from interfering with objects like your side panel or chassis fans. Also, what's up with that GPU sag? It seems removing the air cooler leaves your PCB a bit flimsier than it was. Hopefully EK can solve this by including some sort of support bracket or backplate in the future, because the MSI backplate I carried over from our GTX 1080 didn't seem to correct the droopage at all. So, for an apples to apples comparison, I initially ran the Ada64 and Unigen stress test on our now liquid-cooled PC with all the same overclock settings, and look at this! The better thermal conditions actually pushed our GPU boost clock to 2.1 GHz, a 63 MHz improvement over air without touching a single setting. GPU temps fell all the way down to 59 degrees max and averaged out at around 56 degrees Celsius with an ambient temp of 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty neat. During this stress test, our CPU saw less impressive temps, reaching 71 degrees Celsius and only going as low as 67 degrees Celsius while gaming. The temperatures here could stand to be a bit cooler, so perhaps more time should be spent adjusting the fan curve to create the thermal and acoustic profiles we're comfortable with. Before we dive into the acoustics demo, I should mention the EKWB fans were connected to the motherboard CPU fan header, which was controlled via a custom fan curve I set up in the BIOS. This was the same fan curve and testing methodology used for those Corsair AF140s we heard earlier. What was already a pretty quiet experience with the air-cooled system is made even quieter with the introduction of the AIO. It also means we could probably set a more aggressive fan curve to further improve thermals without being a nuisance to our ears. So at this point, it's not a huge shock that switching over to water cooling allowed us to hit the same settings with lower temps and acoustics. But the final question remains, how much more were we able to overclock the system within these cooler operating parameters? Well, I failed to get the CPU to hit 4.8 GHz without exceeding unsafe voltages, but I was able to maintain our 4.7 GHz frequency with a lower V-core of just 1.32 volts. Although this is just a 0.03 volt difference coming from air, it's still a noteworthy bump in power efficiency and may even help to extend the lifespan of our CPU. On the GPU side of things, we gained 20 MHz on the core clock and 30 MHz on the memory clock, giving us a constant core clock speed of 2113 MHz and a memory clock of 1350 MHz. Overall, switching to liquid gave us a 63 MHz increase on the core clock, which isn't spectacular, but it is something. I guess the takeaway here is don't expect your frame rates to skyrocket from slapping on a couple of these water blocks. It seems the real gains made today were primarily in temperatures and acoustics. Speaking of which, here's a final back-to-back sound test with all 3 configurations we looked at today. On a final note, this liquid cooling duo will set you back $300 or $400, which I'd only consider affordable if comparing it to the cost of buying all the water cooling hardware separately. So without prolonging the inevitable question any longer, is it worth it? Well, if performance is the only thing you're after, I can't say the solution is a worthwhile investment since we couldn't get the CPU to go any faster, and we only saw a minor speed increase with our GTX 1080. The upshot is that if you're suffering from "my video card is on fire" syndrome, our GPU temps dropped 22 degrees Celsius coming from air, which is absolutely insane. CPU temps were a tad underwhelming in our setup, but then again, the loop runs so damn quietly there's definitely room to push the fans harder while maintaining a reasonable sound profile. The final appeal here is convenience performance and time savings. A lot of us want that custom water-cooled experience but lack the time or patience to take the plunge, so EK has really done a bang-up job here to make the entire process super quick and easy. If you're looking for the kind of results we saw here today and you've got a few hundos to spend, then maybe you should buy this thing. But that is gonna do it for now, guys, so before you go, don't forget to toss me a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to check out my store for shirts in all shapes and sizes. Actually, they're all the same shape. As always, thank you guys for watching, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video.